Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I'm reviewing the Vostok Komandirskie, reference 431289. This watch is from my personal collection. It was purchased new, and I've owned it for a little over a week at this point. So, Vostok is a Russian watch manufacturer. It was actually founded in the Soviet Union back in 1942, and Vostok introduced the Komandirskie line in 1965. There are a lot of different dials and bezels, and so there are many different references. And many of the components between these references are interchangeable, so there are modification opportunities with these watches. But let's go ahead and get to doing some measurements. Okay, so I got this off of eBay, and the eBay seller had listed the watch diameter at 40 millimeters. So let's see what my calipers read. 39.9 there, so that looks accurate. And they listed the watch thickness at 12 millimeters. Probably should pull the strap so that we get an accurate read there. In part, we'll leave it partially attached. All right, so watch thickness, they said 12 millimeters, and I am getting, let's get that lined up, 11.9, so accurate. They listed the lug width at 18 millimeters, which should be right. Yep, 18, because I already bought this strap, so, and it's 18 millimeters. And then the lug to lug. So let's get the lug to lug reading, which they did not list on the eBay ad. Getting 46.1 millimeters. Looking at the face of this watch, one can see that it has a blue dial with a stylized submarine and a seagull there towards the 12 o'clock. The seagull itself is more towards the 10. You should be able to see it. At least I'm assuming it's a seagull. Don't know what type of submarine that is. Maybe some sort of diesel. And there is an anchor symbol towards the 6 o'clock position. Each hour marker is reflected with an Arabic numeral, except at the 3 o'clock, where we have the date window, and the 12 o'clock, which is represented with a red star. The hour and minute hands are pencil style, and the watch does have a central seconds hand. The crystal is acrylic. You kind of see it domed up here. The bezel is bidirectional, and it's friction-based, so it does not click. So by bidirectional, it means we can turn it clockwise or counterclockwise. You can see my hand slipping, so that's one of the interesting things is the bezel actually turns really easy. I would say too easy. I bump into things, and I have misaligned the bezel just by tapping up against a desk or whatnot. But the issue is when you want to set it, this particular bezel is completely smooth. I mean, you have these notches where the numbers are, where you can kind of grip, but it's difficult to get a good grip on this. So while it does turn easy, it's actually quite hard to get a good grip and properly turn it. The lume on this watch is pretty disappointing. There are thin quantities of lume on the minute and hour hands. And then there is also lume pips around the dial, except the 3 o'clock position doesn't have a pip. The 6 o'clock position doesn't have a pip. And the 12 o'clock position actually has 2 pips flanking the tip of the red star. In my real-world experience, the disappointment about the lume is the duration. The lume just doesn't glow for very long. I'm going to go ahead here and insert some lume footage so you can see it after it has just recently been charged. The case is a chrome-plated brass, but the case back is steel. The crown that this watch has is a screw down, and it has 3 positions. So we're in position 0, which is the screw down position. It is interesting to me that the watch was advertised as having a water resistance of just 20 meters, even though it does have a screw down crown. That's a bit of a strange rating as well. We don't normally see 20 listed for watches. We often see 10 or 30. 10 meters of water resistance I would normally construe as a watch you do not get wet, and 30 meters of water resistance I would construe as splash proof. So I guess 20 meters is maybe splash proof, but try not to get it wet. I've not really avoided getting it wet with hand washing or anything. I've seen others online talk about various Komandirskie references that are in this 20 meter rating range, because there are other Komandirskies, newer ones I believe, that have a higher rating. And they've indicated not having big issues with water. So I would treat it as splash proof, but that's just my own personal take on it based off the 20 meters. So anyway, back to the crown. So it's a screw down, and let's go ahead and put it into position 1, which is where the movement can be hand wound. The wobbly stem is normal. It's a design feature. It's designed to protect the stem from damage, and so it is supposed to actually be like this. The issue is, though, that it doesn't pop out in the way that you would normally associate a watch stem with the crown. So when we're in position 1 and we want to wind the watch, you actually need to have a little bit of resistance. Otherwise, you could easily just start screwing it back in like I am right here. So I like to kind of tilt the watch so that the crown is somewhat downward and put a little bit of tension on it. And then turning it clockwise, you can start to wind the watch, which you should be able to hear at this point. Oop, I started to screw it back in because I didn't keep the tension right. So that's how it winds. And then position 2 is how we set the time. So again, we're now in position 2. You can see the second hand is still moving. This watch does not hack. And again, you want to make sure you do have a little bit of tension. And I'm turning it counterclockwise, and we're advancing the clock. Now, here's an issue with this watch. There is no quick date. There's no position to set the date. So the only way to set the date is in position 2 when we're setting the time. So let's go ahead and do that. There is a trick that you can do so you don't have to cycle it 24 hours every single time. And I want to go ahead and demonstrate that while we're in time set mode here. So here we go. We're going to hit midnight, and we've switched over to the 18th on this watch. Now, what you can do is start to go backwards. And you notice the second hand pushing back. That's fine. Now, when we're doing this, as we get back more, you see the date, the 18th starting to move a little bit, and it's gonna click down, back, and stay on the 18th, like that. Once that happens, you can actually go ahead and go past the 19th, back past the 12 again, and now we're on the 19th. So that's a process that you can do like this. You don't have to do it as slow as I did, obviously, and you can rapidly start to advance the date that way. So it's still really slow. I actually had to go and do an entire month when I got this watch, and trust me, it takes minutes even doing it that way. So it's something you're really going to notice. This watch does have a closed case back. It came on a leather strap, which I did try on. I didn't really find the leather strap uncomfortable, but the leather is stiff and it has something of a plasticky feel to it. My bigger concern with the strap actually was the keeper. The keeper seemed really flimsy and weak, and so I went ahead right away and decided to put this on a NATO strap instead. So, and that's how I wore it the entire week plus that I was wearing the watch to do the review. So because of that, and that this strap is not one that you can get with the watch, I'm not going to review the strap here. I'll just note that if you are interested in this strap, it's a crown and buckle, navy and red NATO in 18 millimeter. So that's the one I bought. This watch features Vostok's 2414A movement. It's a manual wind only movement, and it has a 36-hour power reserve. It beats at 2.75 hertz. The movement has an extremely poor accuracy rating of -20 to +60 seconds per day. But let's go ahead and check it out on the time grapher. Okay, so we'll go with 17 seconds a day in the dial-up position based off of what we've seen on 4 different readings that you can see on the screen. That went from 10 seconds a day, gained to 18 seconds a day on that range. Obviously, these way movements work, it's not going to be precise every single time depending on the position that the movement is in and on the position around the dial that the time is currently at. So everything running, everything moving, it doesn't always stay consistent even in one particular read position. However, I have gone ahead and measured this in the other 5 positions as well. So if I look at all of that and I take in an average, I get about a 10.2 second per day gain on this movement, with the range being 0 seconds a day in one position all the way up to 20 seconds a day in the most extreme position. I do need to note that I have regulated this watch myself. I do have a video up of that process on this specific watch. When I received this watch, it had an average gain of 23 seconds per day across the 6 positions with a range of plus 19 to plus 31. So while this average of 10.2 isn't the greatest average, bear in mind that it's quite likely that you will not have a movement that's going to be this specific. And here is the watch on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So let you guys get a look at what that looks like. Again, this is on the third-party NATO strap. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on this watch? I'd say there are 2 main positives. The first is that it is extremely affordable. And the second is you do get an in-house mechanical movement. There are a number of negatives, however. The plastic crystal is easy to scratch. I actually have a couple of minute scratches already in it from me banging into stuff, as I am wont to do. The rotating bezel is too hard to grip, and it is too easy to bump out of position. The movement accuracy, out of the box at least, is really poor. The lack of a quick date function is bad. The chrome-plated brass case, to me, looks pretty cheap. And the watch has a fairly limited power reserve, given that it's only 36 hours. I bought this watch off of eBay from a seller I had seen repeatedly cited as a good source for new in-box Vostoks, and the cost was approximately $41 US. So, while I have listed out a lot of negatives, bear in mind that this is an extremely cheap watch. A mechanical watch with an in-house movement and an interesting history, all for under $50, is nothing to sneeze at. So, my negatives really need to be factored against the low price point that this watch is being delivered to you at, because naturally, you have to give up a lot of refinements to obtain something that is this low cost. Of all of the negatives I listed, it's the lack of the quick set date that bothered me the most. I had to cycle in an entire month when I got this watch out of the box. So I know even with the back and forth trick that I demonstrated to move the date wheel, it is extremely tedious. It is the most tedious watch with a date I have ever worked with. I think all the other sacrifices are pretty reasonable given the low price point on the watch. But honestly, I would rather just have a no-date version and avoid the whole date set aspect entirely. I would say if this was your only watch, then obviously you wouldn't have to work that hard to keep the date active and wouldn't really have to be too concerned about the power reserve as well, so that kind of feats hand in hand. But if you've got a sizable rotation of watches, this one's obviously going to be a bit of an issue. You can't put it on a winder and get anywhere with it because it's manual wind only, so it's just you'll always have to deal with the date if you're allowing the watch to wind down. All that said, if someone is looking for a mechanical watch with some character or wants something they can beat around with and have no guilt felt, I think the Vostok Komandirskie should be up for consideration. It is a serious watch operating at a price point where jokes are usually in play, and that is no small feat. Thanks for watching this review video. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, as it does help the channel out. Subscribe if you'd like to be automatically notified when I release new videos. Thank you very much, and have a great day.